because a new study says it's not just a very few parents now doing it, it's 1 in 3 parents. And we all remember our own education. That's a third of parents who are seriously considering home educating their children. The primary reason for those people doing it, they say, is bullying. Their children are being bullied at school. Mental health support's another major issue. 34% of parents say schools don't meet their child's emotional needs. And we'll talk to Carrie about this in just a second, of course. But more than half of parents surveyed by Wolsey Hall Oxford, which is an online education provider, said they think the whole school environment's just too tough. But as parents, aren't we required to follow the national curriculum? We're not when we teach our children at home. Don't even have to meet a minimum number of hours of teaching every day. So do you think homeschooling is the right place for children to be taught? Let's start with you, because I know your children have had a variety of different issues and situations. You may want to just remind people of that.
Yeah, so I have 4 children with special educational needs and disability, and this is where it's interesting that people are considering doing homeschooling, because actually there's 111,000 children that are homeschooled currently. Over 50% of those children are children with special educational needs and disability, and I would say the vast majority of those parents are not people who chose to homeschool. They're homeschooling because, like me, there was no school for my child when they were 11. There was no secondary school. So for 3 years, I had a child at home. And in that situation, I didn't ask to be a teacher. I'm not a teacher. I'm a vocal coach. I can teach them singing. That's it.
Were you worried that you'd be shortchanging them, letting them down?
Of course. And you know what? I became my child's therapist. I became my child's teacher. I became my child's entire social circle, which is totally unhealthy, between the ages of 11 to 14. When they went back into school at 14, since then they're now 19, they're flourishing, they're doing really well. But they will never get back those 3 years that they lost. And I see that even now in so many ways, whether that's to do with their ability to keep trying for that maths GCSE, that they've missed 3 years of all the building blocks of learning, or that socially how they are. It's super difficult. And parents are having to leave work. You talk about bills and stuff like we've just talked about. Parents becoming full-time carers. So most of these people that are taking their children out of school, or their children are off-rolled from school, in other words, the school kind of says we can't really cope with your child. They're not excluding them, but they're off-road. Those children will be at home with normally a mother who has had to give up work. And so it changes the whole family dynamic. It's a terrible idea. For those people that really are confident in homeschooling, absolutely do your best. Because those people are amazing and they have their own communities. But the vast majority are not in that bracket.
We've heard from Carrie, who says she really just didn't bargain for it happening in the first place, and it was incredibly difficult to do. Very. What do you think about it, Nicola?
So I think obviously in your situation different. For me, I really wanted to homeschool. I really, really did.
Why? What was appealing about it?
Having the boys at home with me. I'll be honest, I really, really wanted to do it. I felt like I'd be good at it, even though I don't know in what sort of educational capacity I thought I was going to teach them. But I really did want to give it a go, but my husband was like, absolutely not. And, in hindsight, he was right, wasn't he? They needed to be at school, they needed to go make friends. Sometimes I don't agree with the way the education system is like one size fits all, because it doesn't. Do we still need to be teaching them things that we are teaching them? But yeah, I would have loved to have given it a go. So I take my hat off to any parent that is doing it voluntary, that wants to. If you're doing it involuntary, then I completely understand. Or if your children got educational needs and they're not being met, that's different. But for me, that's just a helicopter parent that wanted her boys at home. I really would love to have done it.
Just missed them in the school day. She just missed them. Remember, she's the mother that gives her children breakfast in bed. That's the kind of mother she is. Albie, what about you? What do you think about homeschooling? A third of people are seriously considering
it. I find that unbelievable. I hope those third of people were watching Carrie's testimony there and actually understand how difficult it is. I mean, I think the fact that you don't need to follow the national curriculum. There's no set number of hours that you need to teach. There's no set exams that the children need to do. There's no sort of safeguarding around the safety of the children, their pastoral care, their mental health. Part of the reason Sarah Sharif died was because of the homeschooling regulations that we have in this country are so lax. Let's just remember that. That's something that happened recently. So I think the homeschooling system in this country is a bit of a racket. I'm not anti-homeschooling, but if people are going to be homeschooling their children, I think there needs to be a much stricter structure of rules around homeschooling, what exams they're doing, how many hours they've got to do, the safety safeguards that would have stopped the situation of Sarah bazaar or sharif happening, and then I might be a bit more supportive of it. But I think the current framework that we have is totally wrong, and I don't understand why any parent would want to do it unless they were forced to.
I just remember
like
going
Carrie
to school,
has.
you know, at 4 years old, and I will never forget my headmaster, Mr. Robertson, who he called Sir, of course, in his academical gown with the mortarboard, honestly, for 4-year-olds. And the first thing I was taught was the Lord's Prayer. Well, I'm Jewish. I would never have learned that at home. It was absolutely magnificent. And then a whole load of songs from the 60s. I was born in 62. You know, wonderful songs like Little Boxes on the Hillside, Little Boxes Made of Ticky-Tacky that you never would have learned, your parents would never have taught you. And then, you know, to chant the 2 times table, which I can still chant to this day. I'm not too good at the 6 times, but I'm good at the 2 times. But what I mean is, you know, other people that aren't your family, teaching you things your family would never have taught you in a structured way, mixing with people you've never met and don't know and might never have
really
met,
important.
eating lunch at school where we were taught to, you know, hold the knife and fork properly and have the peas balancing on the tines of the fork the right way round, not hoovering them up like a shovel, you know, all that kind of thing. And it was all good, a bit strange. It took some getting used to, but all good. And we were divided into swallows and swifts, and I still won't speak to any swifts. I only like swallows. I've been a swallow through and through ever since. Got to school in Hammers Lane, Mill Hill, 4 years old, and it was all good. It was good. It was a bit shocking, but great. Let's go to Meg in London. Meg, what about you?
Oh, yes. Hello.
Hi.
So I've just started to homeschool my teenage daughter. And one of the reasons is that some of the, unfortunately, schools are highly populated, densely, you know, taught. The behaviour in the classroom isn't good. And my daughter was a high achiever. Now, she's been through primary school. The COVID going into high school was pretty horrible for all her age group. But once she settled and she made good friends, she's a lovely student. Yeah. But it was challenging because after a while she stopped learning because it was hard to get help. Now, she's not the easiest person to get along with, but after a while, she just had to knuckle down, or we had to do something else. She started to refuse to go to school because the environment was so unhappy for her. Right. Now, I'm very grateful.
How have you found the challenge of teaching her? How old is she, and what are the sorts of things you're teaching her?
This is it. I don't have to teach, but I work from home. There's a great discrepancy between primary school teaching and high school teaching. And high school teaching is almost like university online learning. So I don't have to be there. But I tell you what, for all the parents listening, it is a huge personal, financial, and time-consuming commitment. It's not, it's good that people consider it. I'm Australian. People did School of the Air. I mean, I grew up listening to School of the Air in our primary school. It's good to have alternatives for different types of students. Mm-hmm. But the sad thing is, I think government schools have to address things like disruption, bullying, low standards, general low standards, difficulty getting the right help for individual students. Mm-hmm. You know, high achievers and people who want to excel in schools that can't meet their expectations. I wish she stayed in school. I would have done anything, so would have the school, to keep her there.
I mean, Carrie's nodding away. She's very empathetic to this. She totally gets it, don't you?
Yeah, completely, utterly. I hear this story all the time.
Yeah, huge sacrifice for the parent.
It really is a huge sacrifice. And I think in many ways, maybe, I'm not agreeing necessarily with the grammar comprehensive system, but I think there was something of that system that was probably quite helpful, because those sometimes quirky kids but were high achievers that just didn't fit, the grammar schools were really good for those children, and we've missed a whole section of those children are now.
Meg, thank you so much. Joining us now is Lisa Waterhouse. Now, Lisa is on Instagram as Homeschooling Mum UK. She teaches her 7-year-old son Orlando at home. Lisa, how lovely of you to join us. What was your reason for homeschooling Orlando?
There's quite a few reasons, really. Before he started school, he was a really confident little boy. And when we sent him to school in reception, I thought that school he would just flourish and do so well. But as time went on, his confidence just got worse and worse. He just changed as a little boy. He wasn't the same happy little boy anymore. He didn't like how the teachers were shouting all the time. He just wasn't used to that environment. And also he developed asthma quite early on, and that just got worse and worse and worse. So my little boy left school. We took him out just before the end of year 1. So he did the whole of reception and virtually most of year 1, and then we removed him from school.
Lisa,
and then also there was
can I
other
ask
reasons.
you, Lisa, were you worried about whether you had what it took to teach him? Did you think, cool, this is an enormous pressure and I'm not a teacher and I don't even know how to go about doing this? Were you scared you'd shortchange him in the end?
I mean, definitely I was nervous, but just seeing how he was so happy, confident before school, and then seeing the change, I just knew I couldn't carry on like this anymore. And that's why I set up my homeschooling page online, because at first it was scary and you don't know where to start and it does feel quite lonely. So that's why I set the page up to help people, because now the more people you meet, the different places you go, and other homeschooling families that I've met, there's just so much out there, so much information, resources, and it's actually such a welcoming community. The homeschooling community is.
Talk me
They're
through,
so
Lisa.
friendly.
Talk me through a typical day. I mean, not the whole day, but just give an idea of the sorts of things you're teaching him, what you do with him all day.
So basically, we do 2 hours of what I call structured learning every day. My little boy's 7. So that will include phonics, English, language arts, science, maths, and we do that. But also the beauty of homeschooling is it doesn't have to be like you learn in a school. So I found out how my son best learns. He's very hands-on. That's how he learns better and how he enjoys learning. So I can adapt my learning style to my son. Obviously, in a classroom setting, you can't do that. You know, you have a class of 30 that you've just got to get the class taught as quick as possible.
Are you worried, Lisa? Are you worried about his friendships, relationships, you know, the socialising and socialisation that comes at school? You know, you learn to wait in a line, you wait for the bell to ring, then you walk. If you're at home, there's never a bell, you never have to wait. It's always your mum who loves you. Is it worrying you, that side of things?
No, and I get this asked so many times, and it makes me smile, because when in the real world, do you have to wait for a bell? When do you have to queue in a line to, raise your hand?
All the time, Lisa. We think all the time we have to wait for a bell and queue in a line, don't we?
Absolutely.
A lot.
I mean, in like real life working situations, the school environment is not the same. You don't have to raise your hand to speak, it's just totally different situation. And my son is more social now than he ever was when he was in school.
Are you thinking, Lisa, are you thinking at some time you will send him back into mainstream school, or do you think you never fancy doing that?
If he ever wanted to, I would never stop him, and I've always said that. But no, at the moment, no. I think the curriculum's outdated.
Let Carrie just ask you a question, because she's been in your shoes, so she knows what it's like.
Yeah, first of all, I think you're amazing,
Here.
Lisa, but I would also like to know, like, if he did want to go to school, has he got all of those building blocks to say at 11 to join a secondary school? Will he have everything in place so that when you hit the high speed of learning in a regular school, would he be able to keep up?
I think more so than school children, because he's just the way he learns different styles, he learns about the real world, the places that we can take him on, because we're not restricted to holidays. He travels all over the world, and he's going to be more confident when he does grow up, or if he does ever want to go into a school setting. I feel he's going to be more confident than most children at school.
Lisa, thank you for joining us. It's fascinating to hear from you. It really is, and no question at all. It comes from a place of total love and absolute devotion, doesn't it? Lovely to have you on. Thank you, Lisa. Let's go to Caroline or William. We'll go to William. William's on the line in Essex. William, you took your child out of mainstream school too.
Yes, that's right. We had 4 children. 2 went through the normal school system, and the younger 2 didn't. One was bullying, well, both really bullying, and so we took them out and homeschooled them. And of my 4 children, 3 are teachers, and 1 is a legal secretary. So this thing, they're missing out on something. I find it very hard to comprehend, because my wife more than me perhaps, we took them out, we taught them, and they opened up, they blossomed. Whereas before they were closed down and would almost having difficulty communicating with them because they're so closed down. After a year or two, they opened up, and at 15 or 16, they were perfectly prepared, more than other children, to talk to adults. I mean, we got them to go around when they were studying, when they were old enough to do a bit of work on Saturdays. Yeah. We got them to go into shops and speak to them and see if they could have a little job. And they did it because they'd opened up, whereas I think a lot of children at 16 would have a lot of difficulty because they've been in the school environment and it's closed them down to a certain extent when they speak to adults.
And then what happened? What happened after that? So they were 16, they could get a little job, as you put it, on a Saturday, but what happened then with the rest of their educational careers or their lives?
Well, they went on to college. They skipped schools and they went into college and blossomed. As I say, one of them has become a teacher.
Wow.
And she is very good with the young ones because she empathises with children who are very worried and anxious at school. Yeah. And she can empathise with them. And she's marvellous. Every school she goes to has been in and worked. She's got sort of full marks. They want her to stay. One academy wanted her to stay. I'm desperate for her to stay, but her husband's in the army, so she had to move. But yeah, in that situation.
All right, William, thank you so much. I obviously did a fantastic job with them. I love the idea of them opening up, and I love a father who says, and my child was blossoming. What a lovely word to use, and what a great call. Thank you. Let's go to Caroline in Bedford. Caroline, you're homeschooling your son.
Good afternoon. Hello. Yes, I've been home edding for 3.5 years, and it's been the best thing we've ever done. It's been a beautiful time we spent together. I am a professional violinist. My son is a double bass player, and we combined our lives together, and we literally rocked this world the last 3.5 years. It's been absolutely wonderful.
What made you decide to do it in the first place, Caroline?
It was mainly music had been taken out of the state school system in a very big way, and he had an opportunity. We went to see a concert one day, and a lady was then suggested that he apply for the UD Maheniwin School. So I said, oh, I don't think that's for people like us. But then I thought, well, we need to really think about how we're going to spend our time and invest in his skills. So that's what we did. And we went to consultation lessons. I travelled, had to spend time travelling to a tutor, spend an hour driving to the double bass lessons, things like that. And basically being able to do all these amazing opportunities that he's had, go on tours in theatre shows and things like that. So fast forward 3.5 years, he's now got a place, and he's going in 2 weeks' time. He's one of 3 kids in the UK that's got a place. So that's given us that opportunity.
Absolutely amazing. Obviously, Carrie can relate to that because of the whole musical side of life.
It's just, taking music out of schools. One of the reasons why kids are struggling in schools, because the arts are so important.
Absolutely. Well,
congratulations.
I mean, I don't know whether this has changed anyone's mind, but it certainly shifted me on the dial, I think, on this, because parents seem to be so very positive about the effect on their children. And what's wrong with that, quite frankly? It sounds absolutely amazing, although you're quite right to say the pressures and the obligations.
I think when you're doing it willingly like that, I think it can really, really work. And I think that's why I said, those people, all power to them, because they're doing a great job, and they all meet together and they have social clubs, and the kids all get on. So they have a school, but it's like being child of the wild. It's a free childhood.